what's happening then.
Awesome. So that's just live now.
Cool.
Awesome. Good evening, everyone. Welcome along to our latest Blether with. Tonight we have got a special guest, a good friend of mine, the Whisky Doc. Paul McGlaughlin will be joining us. As always, Russell's here with me to have a chat, just to kind of coach Paul and have some good, jolly banter. Just let some guys kind of pick up on the watcher. Hopefully you're all at home with a dram. You've had your tea. It's not raining. It's not snowing. We're going to just touch on Russell's backdrop. It's a little bit different from before. It's a bit bare. If you've been watching, even the whiskey bottles are empty behind you. So Russell's in the middle of a flip. So how's that going? Yeah, you're not picking me up. So Russell, for those who are watching, he's in the middle of he's moving house. If you don't know what a flit is, he's moving house, which is why the curtains are bare. The bottles are empty. There's nothing behind him. So and he's drinking whiskey out of, I don't know what kind of tumbler that is you've got. But
I found a glass, but I thought I was going to be using a coffee mug.
So yeah, without waiting too long, let's bring Paul in. You might know him as the Whisky Doc. You might have seen him over in Scotland doing some of the many courses. I've had the privilege of meeting him in. So here he comes, technology permitting. Hello.
Hi.
Seamless. I think that's our first seamless interview we've had.
That's because you got a Canadian in on you. That's why.
Yeah, it's a annoying optimism that you guys have. Everything is great. Smiley. And
makes the day go better.
How are things?
Not bad. As I mentioned, we're in a little bit of a lockdown right now. The province of Nova Scotia has been the pinnacle of success on keeping COVID at bay for the longest time. And then we had a little bit of an incursion a couple of weeks ago where someone decided to break the rules and come on in and leave again and left a little COVID for us to spread about the province. So just got the note on Tuesday that we have a provincial lockdown for 2 weeks. So basically housebound and townbound for minimum 2 weeks. Kids are home from school. Luckily, my office is still open, so we're still treating patients and stuff, boy. But I'm glad I'm done for the week because it's been pretty stressful, pretty anxious and stuff. It's a lot of people are feeling that tension of not really dealing. We hadn't had to deal with it, so here we are. Now we're in the middle of it, and you're worried about the guy across the street, worried about the people coming into town with different license plates, different vehicles. But we'll get through it. I mean, we're pretty resilient.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're at the other end. I'll just say, Russell, his signal is poor. I think he's just had to drop out. Hopefully he can jump back in later. Apologies if you're here to see Russell. He might come back. Yeah, we're at the other end. We're kind of easing out of lockdown. We are, touch wood, it's all going to go according to the plan. Our kids are back at school. The shops opened this week, non-essential shops. So it was great to see there's kind of a nice optimistic buzz around the town. People are coming in, browsing. They're looking for it, whereas before we found it. We've been lucky enough to kind of be open a lot of the time, but people were coming in already knowing what they wanted, picking it up and leaving. Now they're browsing, they're taking a little bit of time. So yeah, we're in a very good moment, and people tend to be quite sensible about it at the moment. They're aware that we're so close, we're touching distance.
Yeah.
So let's hope that we can get over that final hurdle and make sure that it keeps going. We've got a couple of hellos. Somebody you might know, Vic Cameron, has said hello to you. Didn't say hello to me. He just said hello to Paul. So,
hey, Vic.
There you go. David Masson is saying good evening. David Muir. So some of the guys who turn up every week for us. Mike Gow, Duncan Mateer. Good evening, guys. Great to have you along. Hopefully you enjoy the wee Blether. As always, if you have any questions, please fire them into the chat. Paul, are you picking up the comments okay? Can you see them in your...
Well, let's take a look here and see if my interwebs... Oh, look at that. Hey, everybody.
There you go.
Yeah.
So yeah, any comments, any questions, please feel free to fire in. I'm going to crack open a new bottle here to have a dram with you. While I'm doing that, Paul, what have you got in your glass?
I have, well, Mike and I have known to crush a couple bottles from time to time when I'm lucky enough to get across the pond. So thinking of Mike, I opened up a Glenallachie 2008 from the Octave. So this is 8 years, no casks, and then 5 months in a sherry Octave. So yeah, I haven't tried it yet, and smacked it in there. It's got the backbone of Glenallachie for sure, but it's got a little extra spice to it, and it's a cask strength. It's quite a nice dram, actually.
That's so Duncan Taylor. They're just up the road from us in Huntley. They're about half an hour away from where we are. So yeah, a double coincidence for me there. Glenallachie, one of my favourite drams. It's probably the in dram at the moment, and yeah, from a shop just along the road. So I too am cracking open a Glenallachie. Some of you guys who are watching might have managed to snare a bottle of this. I was really looking forward to the Rioja dram, but it sold out. I didn't get my hands on one, so I've plumped for the Gratamaco. I have no idea if I'm pronouncing that right. Now let's have a wee look at this. So Italian wine from Tuscany. It's got an absolutely gorgeous pink rose hue to it. 48% bourbon cask, matured as most of Billy's stock is, and then finished in this wine cask. Part of a trilogy. There is also the Rioja and the Sauterne cask. So Russell is back in. Let's see if we can get a better signal. Tobias, good evening. How are you?
Hello. How are you doing? Yes, that's much better. Of course, I've taken off my glasses now, so I can't see. So, but I can hear you better. So that's a boost.
It's a good excuse to pour an extra large dram. You didn't.
Oh, absolutely.
So what are you on tonight? We've just
I heard you mention a trilogy there, and I suppose it's quite apt that the only drinks that I left out are a trilogy from another shop that we're allowed to mention because we're friends of Aberdeen. And this was a Tomatin Verdeo trilogy that I bought, gosh, about two and a half years ago. I mean, Nick would remind us, I can't remember how long ago it was they had it. And it's so that's a Spanish wine, Verdeo, finished in French oak. So it's quite, I suppose it's quite topical given that Glenallachie have just released theirs recent wine trilogy, and Tomatin have released another trilogy as well. So yeah.
Yeah, we expect
up to 3.
Tomorrow, I think, it's a French oak trilogy. So yeah, they were bottled especially for Nick, weren't they? At Aberdeen Whisky Shop.
Yes, they were. Yeah.
I reckon that you had them when you joined us. So that was October 2019. So yeah, about a year and a half ago. Nick, you might be able to clarify that. So a few more hellos coming through. Oh, Vic has said hello to me. Cheers, Vic. Tobias is doing well. So Tobias, we met at the Isla Whisky. Yeah, where me and Paul had a. We ended up being the house where everyone ended up at the Isla Academy, didn't we? That was. I'm not sure if that was your fault, my fault, or everyone else's fault for swinging us in bad directions. It was. That was good fun. So me and Paul, we met at Spring Bank at the 2017. Was it 17? Jesus. Yeah, a long time ago. Great plans to meet up in 2020 again. Obviously, that didn't work out too well. So Tobias, who's putting a couple of comments in there, we met him as well. So he was at Isla. So yeah, we've kind of, one of the great things that I think whiskey brings is you meet people on these courses and keep in touch. And we were lucky enough to get back together on Isla at the academy there. Russell was due to go to the Isla Academy to start last year. It was start last year, start this year.
I was due to go in October. Obviously, it was cancelled, and then there was an attempt to get that to happen again in March, and now it's not happening at all. So yeah.
So without going into any too much seriousness of it, Paul knows a bit the background and the history of me and the Isla Whisky Academy. So when it was discovered who Paul worked for, he wasn't allowed to attend. So we're not going to go too much into that. I've really got nothing but good stuff to say about the Academy. Great experience. And it's a shame that things have worked out the way they have between us. But hey, let's not fester on it. Let's move forward. Let's think positive. So Paul, you and whiskey. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you've been up to.
Not a whole lot. I've been on the whiskey train for quite some time, and of course, getting over to Scotland and stuff has kind of accelerated that. The whiskey industry for me has turned into a spirit's second job at this point, which is really interesting. Over in Canada, of course, we have limited options for getting Scotch whiskey into here because we're provincially run, and it's the bottle shops are all run by a corporation that is owned by the province. So I wish that we could get more Scotch in as we wish, especially from your shop, because I know that you stock some great stuff, Mike. I mean, Lord Dines, buddy. If I could get a permit, I'd start hauling from here. But what's happened, what's really interesting is that the whiskey has exploded over here, and has so not just in the Scotch sense, but also Irish whiskey, and the Canadian whiskey scene is gotten really big. And what's really interesting is craft whiskey, the craft spirit scene in particular in Canada has just gone in leaps and bounds. And they're not just learning from the past of other countries, but they're really going out on their own and creating some amazing products. There's a lot of little companies out there that's doing things that's like bourbon, but it's not bourbon, and malt whiskeys that aren't Scotch, but it's got the backbone of Scotch. And keeping up with that and having the history of Scotch whiskey behind it has helped me kind of get into the fold a little bit. We're doing a lot of things with rums over here now. We're doing a lot of things with gin. The passion for whiskey is always there, and what I would say the IQs of whiskey for people here has really gotten good, and now people are saying, what else is there? It's interesting to see how the industry has not just exploded for whiskey, but exploded for gin, exploded for other aged spirits. It's crazy, and I'm kind of lucky enough to be within parts of the industry that I can see what's happening from behind. What we're having over here for trouble is actually keeping up. I don't know if it's COVID or what it was, man. A lot of the producers now are doing not just curbside, but they're doing like free delivery to home. There are some loopholes where you can get products from other provinces in and get away with it. We're always I wouldn't say pressuring, but trying to be a positive influence on our provincial liquor board to bring in different products with limited success. The problem when you're dealing with a public corporation like that, it's you might have someone very passionate working there in procuring spirits, but they've also got the bottom lines to worry about. So sometimes, limited products are pushed aside in favor of the mass market or the higher margin products.
Yeah.
But overall, if you look outside the box and look beyond what's on the shelf at your bottle shops, the things that we're getting now from the craft producers is just amazing.
More than just the Canadian Club in Crown Royal. It's
these guys now. Everybody knows what Crown Royal is, and Canadian Club and Alberta Distillers. These guys are big for sure. But now there's companies like 40 Creek and Okanagan Spirits, and these guys have just exploded in the last number of years. That's giving not just comparative products to what people are normally buying, but also different. I don't want to say superior products, but very well done products, and they're doing it now in volumes that can be supported by the market. So it's not just a niche market anymore; it's a market that is fantastic, high quality, but accessible.
Yeah, I think we have that in Scotland. I don't know if we're maybe a little bit ahead in that regard, where there's this whole craft. It started with beer, went into gin big time. But what kind of helped the gin industry here is our small whiskey distilleries. And while they're waiting for the whiskey, they're releasing gin. So a lot of the guys who are looking, we know them as gin distilleries. Eden Mill, Harris, Shetland Real, these kind of guys. In the background, there's this whole gin whiskey market away at launch. And aside from that, the craft market, your Ardent Americans, your Daft Mill, the Torrebeg is just, I'm not sure if Torrebeg would be classed as craft, but new distilleries are all the rages now. Rum is becoming crazy in Scotland. There's so many Scotch rum producers now. I think you're right there with the whole craft, the high end, the small batch kind of idea. The people's demand for knowledge and the access to knowledge that they have, it puts a big impetus on what people can tell you. Before, distillers wouldn't tell you what was in the whiskey. They wouldn't tell you the makeup. They wouldn't tell you, anything but an age. And it's so much more now that people are looking at what cask makeup is. You look at Waterford or Bruichladdich or Daft Mill.
Oh my God! Like Waterford and Ardent American now. I mean, I think they give you a code, and you can actually look up the whole thing, right? I mean, trace it right back to the guy who's planting the seeds for the barley.
Yeah, it's crazy. The information. I went on a tasting, or we hosted a tasting with Waterford, and the information is they have a full region of whiskey from one distillery. They cover all bases, and they've got a blend with the organic, the Gaia. It's almost a blend of everything together. It's unreal, the stuff they do. They're doing it under still single malt. It's unbelievable. Sorry, Russell.
Like do you have a showcase for craft and artisan distilling companies? Like do you take time sometimes to showcase these little guys for the fantastic products that they're delivering?
Then maybe just step in a bit there. I think we do a little bit. I mean, depends. We've got a huge relationship with some of the guys around about us. When Duncan's just come in and said, "Don't forget Little Brown Dog," and people like that who. So Alice, Andrew at Little Brown Dog started off making gin, but he's always wanted to make whiskey, so he's been able to release some lovely batches. So we do like to showcase as much as we can, but I think we like to do a lot of everything. One of our main focuses has been on independent bottling companies, and I think that's what we love to showcase, just that kind of differences you get from some of these guys as well, and they're all up and coming businesses. Apart from the big ones, apart from the originals, the Gordon MacPhails, they've been there forever, but we're still keen to make sure that people remember their story as well, that they drove that kind of forward. I mean, in many ways, they drove single malt forward.
Definitely. And going back to the showcasing part, I think when the question is, do we have to showcase these guys? It would be great to have a focus on Daft Mill or Ardent American or any of these guys, Del Munich, but they do such a good job of it themselves. As soon as it hits our shelves, it's gone. As I said to you before, me and Russell can't buy these products ourselves because it's all for the customers, and it's all I've seen Russell like Googling Aberdeen or Huntley or whatever to try and find a bottle of it because it's just not what we do. I think it's wrong that we buy for ourselves. The odd one slips through the net, surely. But,
the only bottle of Daft Mill I got, Paul, I got very, very, very lucky. The equivalent of winning the lottery. My wife got a bottle in the Berry Brothers and Rod Ballot, which must have been like a shot to a million. So that's the only bottle I've got. But hey, I'm going to open it.
Like I say, it would be great to be able to showcase these guys, but they've got such a fervent following. It's all sold before it's on the shelf.
That's good. That's the power of social media. The power of people being able to find more information than they ever could.
Yeah. And you're hoping to join the whole this new wave, right?
There's a little side project going on over here where we're I haven't shared a lot of information about it, but we're trying to set up an educational distillery experience in my part of the province, and it's really interesting because I've been working with other distilleries and other producers here for the last number of years, and I was just approached recently by a person opening up a commercial distillery, talking about products and judging his wares, so to speak. But to do it yourself and to see the hoops that you have to go through. I was telling Mike earlier that that one of the biggest things is not picking up your still. When you start a distillery, you start a production, it's not, everybody thinks, I'm going to buy a still, I'm going to start making stuff, and I'm going to enjoy it, and I'm going to make sure it's great and sell it. But all these steps that you have to do beforehand, I mean, the last thing you ever do is buy a still. The first thing you do is figure out what you're going to do, and then the permits, and then the inspections and stuff. And, one of the inspections alone, the second time I had someone come look at an inspection, costs 3 times the cost of the still itself, because you're making, and of course, different provinces and different countries have different regulations for fire regulations and what have you. But I tell you one thing, when people start asking me now about how do you start a distillery, you don't know until you do it, and you don't know until you go through the hoops. And what it really does is, for those people who start a craft or an artisan distillery, when they start making not just product but quality product, you have nothing but the utmost respect for what they've done. And it's not a 6-month project, it's not a 2-year project, it's a 3 to 5 year project to have something like that, and then build your success after that. It's kind of crazy. I mean, I've learned a ton, don't get me wrong, and I've for me it's a passion, and it's certainly not my primary job, so I can play with it as I wish. But it's tough, and the people that are in the industry doing these things, it's crazy. I tell you, pat them on the back when you see them succeed, for sure, and have sympathy for them when they have their difficulties. And I don't know about over there, and I think it's kind of the same as it is over here. The craft industry, the craft spirits industry, is very supportive of each other. So I think when you see somebody start something, you look at them and say, yeah, I know what you're going through, and I know that inspector, and I know what it was to get that permit. And they really help each other for the most part. Not 100%, but you know who the good guys are and how they really like to help.
Yeah, I'd agree with you on that. Knowing, and especially, it's maybe just because I know them more, but the gin industry over here, they talk to each other. Then there's Facebook groups for them all to kind of communicate with. And if somebody has a question, pops it on there, and within half an hour, there's about 15, 16 answers from people who have been there, who've done it. And as well as saying this is what you should do, is avoid this. Don't even go down that route. That you'll get a dead end. I think as an industry, the gin is great, but there is also that kind of working on with the whiskey as well. Whiskey the whiskey world's got a lot smaller recently, I think, and a lot of that down to COVID, where people are, we're able to talk to you in Canada from Scotland, and we've had master blenders, we've had brand ambassadors who would take so long to organise getting up to the tasting in the shop, accommodation and all that. It's opened up guys like Billy Walker, Rachel Barry, Stuart Buchanan, just having a chat like you and me are just now. It's incredible. But what it has done is it's shown great support, and you'll see these guys, maybe when they're in their brand focus, up in their own whiskey, not talking about other distilleries, but because they're getting comments from all around the globe on Facebook or Instagram or whatever it is, they're asking, what do you think of Dalmunich? What do you think of Daft Mill? What do you think of Arnhem? And it's great that these guys are aware of it, and not only aware of it, but fully supporting it, saying this is great for the industry. Easy for somebody like a Macallan to kind of ignore the little guys, but I think they realise that it's filtered all the way to the top.
It is, 100%.
Also, you back with us?
I'm having huge internet problems here. I keep on dropping out. I think you can hear me okay. I mean, I guess were you saying I seem to be okay your end?
Yeah.
So So it's obviously what I'm hearing. I'm having to work really hard to concentrate because it's very broken. But I guess the hint of what you're saying is just the growth of what's going on just now in a lot of the smaller distilleries. I was having a thought about this today myself, and I wondered about asking, somebody, a great historian like Charles MacLean, if he's ever seen such a boom as there is just now, because there's certainly been booms and busts in the industry before, but this one seems completely different and off the scale. And I don't know if that's because of the huge amount of investment that's going on, private investment in bottles and casks, and the whole flipping kind of notion. I don't know if that's what's kind of made things even more, or if it's just become more accessible for everybody. I don't know. It's a hard one. I know what Charles would say, but what do you think?
What Chambers would say as well.
Yeah.
When it comes to flipping.
Yes. Yeah.
The flipping side of it's. Let's not go down that rabbit hole. We could invite a whole host of comments from that.
Them's fighting words, what thens are.
Yeah. Let's avoid that. So Paul, what's your? I mean, what tonight is all about is getting to know you, getting to know us, and just having a chat. We're not looking for people to swarm the website and buy heaps of whiskey. That's not what these kind of chats are for. Tell me, what's your favorite what's your best memory in whiskey? What's an outstanding point of your career?
Well, I will say this: if we talk about the romanticism of whiskey, it would be the time that we were given the keys to the warehouses in Springbank.
Yeah. I'm not sure we can name names, but there was a certain guy who took us into the warehouse.
No, we're not naming names. Oh, no. Yeah, and as much as this was an amazing experience, I'll still lie through my teeth that I dreamt it up in a drunken stupor. But we were when we were at Springbank, and we were there during opening. It was Campbelltown Malts Festival week, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was that weekend.
Yeah, so we managed to get there, and if you have never been to the Malts Festival, it's crazy. It's amazing. I mean, it's really something else. But it's busy. So we were doing, we were shoveling barley, tons at a time, and we were shoveling the draft. We were working the still 11:30 at night. We're doing all the things that we could do, including the bottling hall. We're even working in the bottling hall and shipping, which I don't think a whole lot of other students have done. So we were really engrossed. What we were also doing, we were also helping assemble things for the Malts Festival, tapping kegs and stuff. So at one point, we were going from one warehouse to another, and we found a very nice cask. And we noticed that it was very inviting, and we noticed that it tastes very good. And to have something that, and we were told not to go overboard, but we were told to, treat yourself for doing a good job all week. That kind of trust and allowance for a bunch of students from around the world was crazy through Springbank, and we love those guys for doing that and allowing us to be part of that. But it was also sitting there with a bunch of other people that we just met 3 days ago. The people that we met the night before, and the next morning we all showed up with the same color T-shirt on.
Yeah,
that experience is what kind of brings everything into focus. When you
have T-shirts.
What's that?
Have you still got your T-shirts?
I wore one of them out. I still have my jacket. It's been to the seamstress twice to put back together, but I'm still wearing my jacket. And I've got 4 or 5 T-shirts. One of them's just gone. It's done. I've just worn it out. My wife don't even let me wear it around the house anymore. But yeah, it's that time at Springbank, enjoying a dram together, from a cask, and an exciting time. That was, if you talk about the experiences you have, when you sign up for an experience and you get something that much more, that's what makes it special. And I'll go to my grave with a Springbank in my hand, thinking of those times.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. Russell, I don't think in all the time we've known each other, I've asked you about what your defining whiskey moment is. I mean, as a professional whiskey, you're quite new to the game, but has there been an experience before joining Inverurie that stands out for you?
Just to me.
Yeah.
Yes. So yeah, listen, Paul's story sounds absolutely fantastic. For me, no, I've not had the opportunity to have anything like that yet. My introduction to whiskey was when I was a wee boy. I was brought up in the Highlands, and in the Highlands of Scotland, Hogmanay New Year lasts for a good 2 weeks and beyond. And there's parties in every house. And as a wee boy, it was kind of magical because there was no bedtime. You could kind of do what you want. You played outside, all hours of the night. And I remember it was always the next day when the glasses were all lying about on the tables and the adults were all lying in bed drunk. And you would stick your nose in the glass, and it was awful because it was things like grouse and bells. And I thought, gosh, I'm never going to drink whiskey. But there was something still magical about it. And I remember, because I knew my dad liked whiskey, I used to look out stuff. Looking back now, I recognise now there were blends. I think there was a blend called Strathconnan. I think it was made by Black and White Whiskey Buchanan's, perhaps. I'm not sure. And I remember seeking one of these out and being so pleased to find it, but I had no intention of sharing a dram with it. And sadly, I discovered malt whiskey when he was coming towards the end of his life, and I never got to share that. And I suppose that's a huge disappointment to me that I never got to kind of go on the journey that I'm having now with him alongside, because I think he'd have had an absolute blast. So there's a bit of my magical journey is all about the fact I'm really enjoying it. But there's a huge echo of my dad almost being there with me and thinking he would have loved this as well. And I kind of almost sometimes feel pushed on to kind of find out as much and learn as much and enjoy as much, because I think he would have done that. So I think it's more of a kind of memory thing for me as opposed to an experience. And I'm looking forward to some of these magic moments. I mean, I've clearly had some great moments with guys. Mike and I have got drunk on many an occasion. Going down to Edinburgh that night was fantastic for the school. But no, I feel my really good experiences are ahead, and I'm excited. I'm excited for them.
We've just got Tobias. I think his comment on Paul, your Springbank story, says that sounds great and unique. So Tobias, I think the closest thing I could put to it was on the Island Whisky Academy. We did that warehouse tasting with Adam at Brookladdy. So if you took Adam and Rachel out of it and just let us go at it, that's kind of what the closest thing that we did to that. I mean, obviously having Adam there was phenomenal. Jumping over the barrels and pour from can. It's well, yeah,
great fun.
Yeah, just almost we were told. What was it? We were told a pea in a cask is for private stock or something. We weren't allowed to touch those.
We didn't touch the private stock, no.
But we'll see you in half an hour.
Yeah,
not that you're going to tell us anyway.
There's another story, Russ, that I love. It was we were tasked to fill bottles for the caskins and the private tasting, and we spent the morning doing hand fills, like hundreds of hand fills, emptying, siphoning, J-clothing, and going. And the people that were there for the Springbank Whiskey School, we really got along really well. There was never a quiet time. There was always someone having a chat, always somebody sharing an idea or whatever. But we got done at lunchtime, and there was a 5-minute walk down to where we're having lunch. It was the first time in as many days that not a word was said. It was quiet. We were walking down, and nobody was saying a word to each other. And the reason why, because we're hand filling. We're all walking down the road smelling our hands. Mm-hmm. Because it was just, we were splashed with whiskey. So, oh my God, that was the Glen Talkers. Oh, what do you have in your hands? No, I've got the Springbank, right? Oh no, what? No, what's your fingers smell like? So we're all going around doing this, walking down. I can't imagine what people on the other side of the road thought of us.
We went into the Academy shop for the first lunch, remember? And we sat down at the dinner table, and to the right, I was facing that way, to the right of me, floor to ceiling of cannon heads, single cast releases, incredible stuff. And we were told, pick a dram for your, to go with your dinner. And we were okay. Oh God, what? We don't want to take the piss. We're like, so I think we opted for a 12-year-old Pulteney or something like that. it wasn't Mark Watt. Who was it? Who was the lad who?
Donald?
Was it Donald? Could have been. But he just kind of looked and he's like, "Come on, boys, you can do better than that." Yeah, like 50-year-old Highland Park or something like that. It was like, yeah, up the game a little.
Yeah,
yeah, absolutely amazing. So Russell, I do hope we get you down on the Springbank School. I'm very keen to go back. I know somebody. Do you know Ricky? I won't mention his names actually, but we have a friend of mine who I met through Aberdeen Whisky Festivals, who was on the Isla Academy the week before, or the course before me and you were, Paul. And he was planning to go at Springbank this year. He waited on the 2-year waiting list, and then he got cancelled, so he's absolutely devastated. So hopefully that's up and running, because what an experience
it is.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, I would say my favorite, not my favorite, but one standout whiskey experience for me was being invited. We were about 8 months old as a shop, and Gordon MacPhail had been kind of our go-to supplier. We'd opened up with a lot of stock from them. So Stephen invited us along as guests of his to the opening dinner night of the Speyside Whisky Festival. It was at Glenmurray Distillery in the warehouse. 3-course dinner, kind of tasting and all the great and good of whiskey was there. And I remember going to the toilet, and it's just this port cabin urinal, and doing the business. Just looked to my right, and there's Charlie McLean right next to me. I was like, I'm being next to Charlie McLean. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Of course we didn't.
Your idol.
And wow, this is amazing. And but that whole experience, you're sitting at a table next to Stephen Rankin and Stuart Ellis, and have a great chat, and Graham Cool got his award, and then afterwards we're speaking to Dave Broom, Blair Bow, all these kind of great guys who are in the whiskey industry idolized, and we're sitting having a chat and a dram with them. And I was like, and they're not looking at me as if who's this guy. They genuinely wanted to know about what we were doing, and we were only 8 months into the business. And that goes back to what you're saying. People are very friendly. They want to help on. They get people up the ladder and stuff. So that to me was, as a first experience, will always stick in my mind. The whole night, not just peeing next to Charlie McLean, the whole thing. Yeah.
I think, Mike, you're talking about. I think you were talking about maybe sending me down to Springbank, which I'm excited about. You were going to send me to Isla. That's a long story, and you're putting me through the Edinburgh courses as well, which is fantastic. But for me, coming into this industry new, just October 2019, the amount of people that I've met that are, big names in the industry already, and spoken to and been able to ask questions has just been phenomenal. But I'm going to show my complete ignorance again here. But sometimes there's people come into the shop to drop off sample sets that actually own distilleries. And one person in particular who came in with some tasting sets, I was in the middle of doing a DPD drop off, which, like for F's sake. And then there was another customer. So I was trying to deal with these two customers at the same time when this gentleman came in and said, "That's your samples for the tasting." I'm like, fine, just put them on the floor, magic, and just kind of ushered him out of the shop because I was still busy. And of course, Mike then came in and said, Glenfarclas, he's been in, is he? I'm like, who? And is it George Grant? Is that right?
Yeah. The man himself, George
You're
Grant.
kidding. I literally dismissed him. Like, I'll get out, just drop him there and get a few. So yeah.
We'll make that.
I need to up my game a bit.
And the worst thing was, it was probably the only 3 customers in the shop we had that day as well.
No, it was true. It was true. Yeah, it ruined my moment.
So how's that Glenallachie going down, Paul?
It's good. Yeah, I really like it. It's definitely got the backbone. I'm going to switch to
which one have you got, Paul?
I got it's from the Yacht.
Oh, nice.
It's, Duncan Taylor. I managed to get a bottle of this over here last year or the year before. I think it was last year I got it. It's pretty tasty. Glen, I was going to ask you about this. Glenallachie is not something we find on the bottle shops over here. and there's one spot that will get a case in from time to time, and it's very difficult to get your hands on. What's are they increasing production or getting more product out these days, or are we just closed down because we're in Canada?
I can ask the question. I would say they are. The problem they've got is they've become very successful quickly. From us as a retailer looking in, I don't know how they are in other markets with production level. They have capacity for huge production. They were, up until kind of 5 years ago, one of the main components for Chivas Regal. They were, a blend and malt. That's all they did.
Yeah. So
they have huge capacity for an incredible amount of whiskey, but Billy, being who he is very particular about the casks, the finish, and experimenting and making sure it's right. Long term, I hope that they do start producing stuff and getting it out to you. It must be on their agenda. Maybe COVID has struck. I know they do have bottle. It's not liquid issues, but I'm going to do a Ben here. As I'm not sure how much I'm allowed to say because a lot of it is said in confidence. So, I think
along with other businesses, they're having the same difficulties with, like for a long time we couldn't get. I mean, Amazon was buying up all the cardboard, so lots of people were struggling with packaging. So I don't think they're any different to any other company that was having an issue to be able to package. And that's not saying that they were having one, but everybody was. Among other issues. But Mike's right. I mean, the capacity they've got there is massive. It's not like they're not a brand new distillery. They've inherited 70 to 100,000 casks of whiskey, which Billy's now managing and doing, amazing things with. So it's the same as everybody. Distribution. You've got Brexit. You've got, you had the US kind of tariffs fairly recently. So a few of these things have kind of gotten in the way, and they're having to navigate and negotiate that the same as anybody else, I guess. But they're doing really well. I mean, they're huge absolutely massive across Europe. Yeah, they've got a huge following across Europe.
Big shapes in Australia as well, as far as I know. But it's funny you mentioned that kind of trouble that they, not just Glenallie, but the industry has had. And I read somewhere that the industry has dropped about 25% of sales in the last year. If you look at it, it's like, as an industry, we've had Brexit, we've had the US tariffs, we've had COVID. That is 3 massive blows to the industry. I don't think any other industry, or not many other industries, would get that triple whammy and say, "Oh, we lost 25% of sales." That's a pretty robust. I think it shows just how strong the industry is in terms of people still want it. They will still pay for it. They will, by hook or by crook, Tobias in Germany will get a bottle to him, because that's what he wants. I'm just using your example, Tobias, because you've just commented and it come up on screen. But we have guys in Norway and Switzerland and all that who are trying to get. Hopefully, this drop or the suspension of tariffs in the US will get us over there. I do have a friend in America who is trying to get us over there just now, so let's have a look to the future and hope that comes through. So Tobias's comment: in Germany, it seems Glenallie is really ramped up. Yeah, before Brexit, we were sending cases of Glenallie over to Germany. They love it over there. But when Billy was at Glendronach had a huge. I assume they do still have a huge following in Germany. But I know Holland has a big following as well. Whether it's a distiller or whether it's Billy that they love, or both, or all 3, I think they'll get to you. We'll get to Glenallie, even if I have to ship it over myself in a flight or something. We'll get some over to you.
So here's the.
Listen, Paul. When Mike and I come over to see you, we'll have lots of bottles in the cases.
Well, you're allowed to bring over 12 bottles at 700 ml, and I'll pay the tariff. After that, we'll do. I'll pay the taxes on the first 24 bottles.
We'll do that. We'll have some down our socks. We'll have some down. Well, we'll make sure you get plenty.
Yeah.
Here's a question for you that kind of this pushed on here. Billy Walker leaves Glendronach. I mean, he's not to put the man on a pedestal, but I think he deserves some recognition for making quality product and resurrecting older product. I don't think that can be debated. But now Glendronach decides to drop their non-chilled filtering thing. So, I mean, if you look at the media's just running with that like a dog on a bone.
Let's bring out all the controversial subjects. Flipping, Glendronach, non-chill filtered, yeah.
Yeah. But it's interesting, and I've been following it quite closely on Facebook, and the Glendronach page or the Sherry Bomb, all these kind of pages. Everyone has just dismissed it. They just said, "Well, I'm not buying Glendronach in."
Yeah.
All because they dropped 3 words off a label.
Yeah.
We don't know what it tastes like. We don't know if it's going to be. We don't know if they're even doing non-chill filtered whiskey yet. But everyone has talking about
the thing is, ultimately, the majority of Scotch is probably chill filtered. At the end of the day, us kind of connoisseurs of it, or snobs, if you like, we put a lot of emphasis on non-chill filtered and non-coloured and all that kind of stuff. But the majority of Scotch is actually chill filtered. At the end of the day, and we enjoy other drinks. We enjoy a lot of good blends. That's all chill filtered. So I think we've just got to wait and see.
If I'm honest, we have somebody in the shop and we're talking to people in the shop. I very rarely say this bottle's non-chill filtered or this bottle's naturally coloured. It's about the taste and the price bracket that they're looking for. If we get onto that conversation, we know the buyer is kind of into that, and that's where we go. But it's very rarely I will use non-chill filtered or chill filtered as a selling tool.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's about taste, it's about quality, and it's about price point. Yeah. The Adelphi, the £27 Adelphi blend, absolutely astonishing, and I would sell that day on day. Just wonderful stuff, and that has to be chill filtered. 40%, of course it is, but it's wonderful, absolutely wonderful stuff.
So if Fiona's just asked quickly,
what is flipping?
What is flipping? Basically, if we buy a bottle from a retailer such as ourselves and then put it to an auction or resell it privately at a double its value or an increased value, an immediate resale is kind of a flip. So it is quite prominent in whiskey just now, especially with very limited editions. People will buy from somebody like us at £50. You'll see it on an auction 2 days later, and people are spending, 80, 90, 100, 150 pounds on it. So, the problem we have with flipping is that it's driving the retail market price up. So, we just came into the industry in 2015. I think the Bowmore did their Devil's Cask series, £99 for the first 2. The third one, when we opened, was about £199, and there was a big thing of why they're just profiteering. And my eyes got opened to the reaction was, well, you're paying the money, you're paying the £199 on auction, so why don't you pay them for it? Mm-hmm. Makes business sense. You can see why the industry does it, but then they get accused of profiteering. But it's the guys at the other end who buy. And it's a big messy, who's wrong, who's right. You could blame the auction houses, you could blame the distilleries, you could blame the people willing to pay the money, blame the guys selling it. It's never end. It's a big circle.
It kind of is frowned upon, Fiona, but hey, it's not illegal, and I think that's the issue. But it could start many a fight in a pub. I'm pretty sure.
The latest one was the Springbank 10 local barley, which was been just exploding social media. It's a 10-year-old that has been flipped three or four times the price, and Springbank fans are on average very fair and really do support the Springbank lovers community. And so you'll find a Springbank lover who will have 2 bottles of a whiskey, and they will actually sell one at cost to another person who really wants it, to share the love of Springbank. So when the 10-year-old barley started going for 400 or 500 pounds or more on secondary market or the resellers market, then that's a stake in the heart for people who love Springbank and the idea of Springbank and the underground movement of Springbank lovers looking after each other, and it created a lot of animosity. But you got to look at the other side. I mean, it's during COVID, it's not toilet paper and it's not yeast and it's not flour. You don't need it to survive. And in a capitalist society, then what something is worth is what someone's willing to buy or pay for it. So, people don't like it, because it takes it out of the value range or cost availability of some people. But again, if someone wants to buy it, that's what it's worth. And at the end of the day, if I don't have a bottle in my bar, I'm still going to sleep the same. I'm still going to wake up the same. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah,
I think that's a great point, Paul. I think that's a great point. And the fact is that because I kind of got sucked into it a little bit, just very, very. I started thinking, I need to get this and I need to get that, and I was like, whoa, I'm not going to get it. It's just not going to happen. And there's so many other good whiskies. Glen Scotia that Tobias has just mentioned there, very affordable, wonderful stuff, so you don't need to be chasing, you just don't need to be chasing these bottles. There's some absolutely astonishing whiskey out there. And I'm just not willing to play the game of trying to get stuff. I'll enter ballots. Why not? Why not enter a ballot? It's like putting a lottery ticket on. It's not costing you anything.
No.
But I'm going to drink it. I'm not going to. I got that bottle for £100. I could sell it for 400. And there's your flip, Fiona. You're not going to get that kind of investment or that kind of markup on your money anywhere else. But whiskey's for drinking. It's for sharing. So that's what we should be doing with it.
Yeah. This is funny to
and that's the gist of it. It's for people who the real whiskey lovers will never look at a bottle and say you can't have it. Sometimes we'll have a bottle that say we're not going to open that until my son gets married, or I'm going to open that on the day of my retirement. But the day it's open, it's not going to be capped again and left to yourself. You're going to open it with people that you love or people that you enjoy having about you. And when you go against that grain, that's when you start getting it. It's no longer an enjoyment; it's a commodity. And dare I say, Macallan has, in some respects, reached a commodity status, where those bottles going for 900,000 pounds or whatever will never be opened. They'll never be enjoyed. And quite frankly, I'll question the quality of what's inside compared to something you're going to get off the shelf for 60 pounds.
The problem with Macallan, well, as an example, they put themselves on that pedestal. The problem is that the guys who are buying this whiskey, they're buying it to sell on in 10 years' time or whatever. There's still going to be the same amount of bottles because nobody's opening it. Yeah. And we don't know anything about this whiskey, how old it is, what's in it, what cask maker. My worry for Glendronach, now that they've taken that first step, is they're going to go the same way. I'm not saying that's what they do, but it's a worry. Are they trying to compete at that rate? They've got the fan base for it. Mm. Fan base now has a great alternative just to move to, if they wish. And that's the trouble. Macallan never had a rival. Glendronach actually stepped up to the plate once Macallan became non-age statement, kind of mass-produced. Glendronach was there, waiting in the wings. Billy's just done exactly the same. I think a great point there. Great starting prices, reasonable availability, and you don't have the flipping uphill. Springbank, until recently, Springbank was their special releases were 50, 60 quid. Great cost. Buying that it wasn't going to break your heart if you didn't get it, and you can open it. If you wanted to resell it, you maybe get 70 quid for it. Thinking for 20 quid, I'll just drink it. It's all right. In Lefroy, I actually had a chap in the shop today having this exact same conversation. So I'm glad that Tobias mentioned Lefroy. They have the similar ethos with their Cargis releases. It was the Sherry Cask 10-year-old that came out. We just got it in yesterday. So a guy came in the shop. He bought two, and we enjoyed. He goes, "I buy one, and I'll buy one to keep. One to drink, one to keep." And I says, "What are you keeping it for?" He goes, "I'll just drink it later." That was it. It was brilliant. That's and Lefroy were the ones.
Fiona's bang on. Fiona's bang on with that comment. It's like your good watch. Don't leave it in the box. Like a good suit. Don't leave it in the cupboard. Wear it.
leave it.
You use it. I just think that for me, whiskey. I mean, I don't know if we've all read Whiskey Galore. You know, the classic tale of the grounding of the marooning of the boat. And I just think that for me, when I'm drinking whiskey, when I'm enjoying whiskey with people, I just imagine being on that island with all that kind of stolen whiskey and sharing it, having those parties, having those meetings, having that. You know, it's not a proper meeting unless you've got some whiskey there, and you're drinking it. You're not saying, "Oh, look what I've got! It's in the cupboard. I'm going to sell that for." You know, it's all for sharing and drinking. And I think for me, that's what whiskey's about.
What I love about the virtual tastings we've been doing, and this was again, we'll mention Nick at Inverurie Whisky Shop. This was something he posted on Facebook or Instagram, whatever it was. They had a great time at the end of their tasting where they did a bottle opening. Kind of everyone grabbed a bottle from the cabinet and opened it and talked about it. I thought, what a great idea! Let's do that virtually. So I brought it into one of our tastings and thought. So I cracked open a whiskey cellar single cask Royal Brackla, and now a couple of guys got. I thought that's amazing. You know, let's. I think that should be a movement. We'll credit Nick with it. Let's. You know, while we're doing virtual, let everyone open a bottle. You know, we've done the drams we want to. Let's talk about your cabinet and open a bottle. So you've just opened your Glenallachie Octaves. I opened my nicely bottle here. So don't get Russell. What are you opening? Come on, tell.
You said, what have I done there? So I've worked my way through the trilogy, and I guess just to kind of mention to Fiona again. I mean, thank you very much for saying it was a lovely story. You know, my dad had a big influence in my life. Obviously, I mean, lots of people same position. But I wrote a story in a glass, and it was one of the things that my brother-in-law and I started working on a little while ago, where you imagine a scenario, or you've maybe had a lived scenario where a whiskey kind of brings back memories, or it makes you think of a story. And Neil, my brother-in-law, Whiskey Trials, if you ever get a chance to go and see some of his stuff, is brilliant at actually storytelling. And we just got into this kind of thing where we did that wonderful story about the Ardbeg 10, where we both got the tomatoes and the fish and the harbour and the sea, and we developed a lovely story about this fisherman coming back, just rowing in with the leather hands on the rope, the tarry rope, and then going into his greenhouse to water his tomato plants. And it just really made you kind of think about the dram. It invoked the story, all the flavours that's coming through. But this tomatin, I wrote a story in a glass that I gave to, well, I recited at my interview for the shop, which Mike obviously liked and gave me the job. And it was a lovely reminiscence. There's a lot of sort of jam and cream and sponge cake, and the story was around the fact of me playing outside and then coming inside, and my mum having made this lovely Victoria sponge, and my dad smelling off it because he was drinking the whiskey, and you know, that just a whole kind of magical moment. And again, I think that's a thing you can do. You can't do that if you buy a bottle of whiskey and then just flip it on the market. You can't tell that story because you've no idea what that tastes like. Only tell the story once you know what that tastes like, once you've had that experience. And I
only give you the job so I could plagiarize that story. We have talked about starting up your story in a glass. I do want to get that out there because you got some great stories about your Ardbeg and tomatoes and stuff like that. So,
well, I've got to credit Neil for most of that as well. I mean, it's a very much a joint venture, so he'd be delighted to help out. He loves that idea as well.
So I'm just going to make, Paul, while we've got you on, obviously you're not just a whiskey fan and kind of dabbling into this. You have the Whisky Doc. You're a fellow whiskey ambassador, tutor. You're not just a friend who likes whiskey who we've brought on. So for those guys who are watching, Paul is he's a dentist by trade. Hence the doc side of it. That's not just a wee add-on. A bona fide, a qualified doctor. So your kind of niche, or your specialist, I suppose, would be on the sensory kind of link. Would I be right in saying that? Or?
Yeah, no, it's really interesting. My first, when I went to school for the first time, I got a degree in chemistry, and I was going to be a chemistry teacher. So I was really going to start blowing stuff up and making stuff and share that with others, because I was going along the lines of being a professor, a chemistry professor. And I realized that maybe I didn't have the patience for that. And at the time, I kind of thought about working a little more with my hands, so I steered towards dentistry. So what dentistry does for the first 2 years is throw you into a very heavy didactic education. So we, did a tremendous amount of medicine in the first year, and then a little bit more after that. What it's done is given me basically the gross anatomy and a neuroanatomy from the waist up. Now don't ask me why in dental school I had to dissect someone's heart or kidneys. You don't find teeth down there very often, right? But and why we're doing neuroanatomy and taking the brain out of the cadaver and slicing it up, because that just looked like shitty bread to me. But what it did was it gave me a fantastic insight into different things. Like, I've always had this idea, like, why is that as it is? How does this happen? And that's where the chemistry and the science came in, years ago. And then through dentistry, I learned a lot of things about the senses, because, when you're dealing with the mouth, you're not just dealing with the mouth, you're dealing with all the nerves of the mouth, the nose, the face in general, and how things work out, how the tongue works. You're looking at taste, you're looking at aromas. So when we started learning these things, years ago, it was really fascinating to me to see how something tastes, why something tastes. Why does it evoke a response? Where does the memory pathways come from? How do you associate the taste and aroma of something with a memory from 40, 50, even 60 years ago? So when I started on this journey of whiskey and gin and spirits and what have you, it gave me kind of a different, like a behind the scenes in how things work and why. And I love that. I love teaching other people. When I do my tasting courses, I don't just put a glass of whiskey in front of you and say, okay, what that is. We actually start with a little exercise where I'll put an aroma out, just a simple aroma. And it could be a vanilla bean, or it could be a nutmeg, or even a piece of creosote or something out of a barbecue. And I'll ask people, don't tell me what you think it is. First of all, tell me, does it smell good or smell bad? Does it feel good or feel bad? Now, does it remind you of something in the past? And don't tell me what it smells like. Tell me what it reminds you of. And it's really interesting how people will go back and they'll say, that reminded me of sitting around and having campfire s'mores with my grandfather. And it'll actually point towards certain things that they like either smoky whiskeys or what have you. Or someone will say, that reminds me when I got burned as a child, and you can't get near them with an Ardbeg, right? So, what people feel and what people experience, what people like and don't like, is so intertwined with how we work from here to here, and evoking those memories and evoking those responses, and seeing how people can put names or experiences or descriptions to certain things that they taste or they smell. It's really fascinating. And for me, I feel it gives people a better way of experiencing their drams, helps them with pairing those drams to foods or events and stuff. And it just opens up people's eyes to what they're experiencing and how to experience it better.
Yeah, outstanding. It's a really fascinating thing. And every time I speak to you, we learn something more, and it's incredible. And I don't know whether it's your Canadian accent or the big goofy smile you've got, or just the way you talk.
Mike, there's a definite bromance going on there for sure.
there is. I just can't help but listen. But yeah, I've listened. I've probably heard that before, but you still feel like you feel wanting to listen to it again and again. Which is why we were discussing before about our Highland Whisky Academy, that we want to get off the ground. Me and Russell had a chat about this last week, about let's try and get something off the ground sooner rather than later, whether it's virtual or low key and just something. And even though we can't get you over in Scotland, I would love to have you on a screen talking to the guys and doing something. So
It's kind of fun to do that. I don't know.
Maybe not this year. Maybe next year.
Yeah, for sure.
The problem I have, Russ, is that I usually go to Scotland 2 to 3 times a year, and this is my second year not being here. Man, I told my wife and I told my staff at the office is that as soon as I'm allowed to go, you're not going to see me for 3 weeks. I'm gone. That's it. I'm probably going to be sleeping on Mike's porch. I really don't give a crap at that point. I'm getting my arse over
Paul,
there.
You need to let us know when that is so we can shut the shop for 3 weeks.
You might have to.
I know. We've got Janice. We'll be okay.
It'll be good.
Well, yeah, Janice will. Yeah. Make sure the holidays are in.
Yeah. But Charlie, I know that if Charlie's on, like I promised her that we'd do a tasting sometime and like a little aroma thing. So if I can't get over there in the next year or so, it'd be fun to set up a little experience through your shop where we'll get some samples to people, we'll get some aroma samples to people, and we'll actually, do it for an hour or two and do a little trip down memory lane kind of for people, right? It's really is fun to do that. And, we're not talking about pulling out repressed memories and sending people to their therapists and stuff. But it's kind of cool to see if someone says, my God, that's what reminds me of. That's why I enjoy this so much. That's why this smell or this whiskey gives me warm fuzzies, right?
I mean, we could do that, Russell. I mean, your previous job was in the NHS. So, what was your job? A therapeutic nurse?
I was a mental health nurse. I worked in the community, so I was a mental health nurse. But yeah, no, I mean the whole. Obviously, when I trained, these days when you train, you just train in your speciality. When I trained, you did everything. You went. I actually did one of my surgical modules was in ear, nose, and throat. So along with yourself, Paul, I mean, I got a bit of experience, and it was a kind of area that kind of sort of resonated with me. I could understand it. There was a few parts of anatomy and physiology that I could understand. The heart clearly is an easy one. The lungs, the respiratory system, and obviously ear, nose, and throat. These were ones that I could understand reasonably well. So I really enjoyed. Mike and I went down to Edinburgh to do the sensory day. What I loved about that was with Dr. Gordon Steele. But what I loved about that was just, you talk about the memories from whiskey and stuff like that, but he gave us 2 drams. One was dark coloured, one was fairly light. And obviously, when we nosed them and we tried to work out what they were, the whole room decided that the light one was definitely grassy. It was citrusy. It was vanilla. It was bourbon. There was ex-bourbon. This is definitely ex-bourbon, and we were all pretty certain on that. And we got into the dark one. Yeah, no, there's definitely a sherry finish in here as well. We can pick up all this kind of cinnamon, Christmas kind of cake kind of smells, deep, rich fruits. But Gordon had actually played a trick on us. He'd actually put the colouring into one. We're both exactly the same. Sometimes you can be tricked by what you think you would like.
I think you've done that course, have you? Well, have you done the sensory one?
Through Edinburgh Whisky Academy?
Yeah.
Yeah, done that one. Yeah, that's
really
cool.
Did he trick you that day as well, Paul?
That was a fun time. That was a great day. I like that one.
I remember we did a kind of exercise of what you're talking about, where we went around and there was like 28 different aromas.
Jesus, yes. Oh my God. Yeah.
Alcohol at it, guessing what they were. I was so bad. I am going to put blame on Russell for
I did manage to beat you by about 6%. I think it was only about 6%, but it wasn't much. Yeah. Mike and I are very competitive, Paul. You're going to find that out. Like from actually who says something first about him. This is ridiculous. Actually, I'm going to stop telling him my favourite whiskies because he keeps on selling them in the shop and making them popular.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we've got some great whiskies coming in off the back of some of Russell's hidden gems. I'm not going to talk to him. Actually, we mentioned I can say this now, Russell. This will be news to you as well. So for those of you guys who have pursued through, put up with us for the 12 minutes over the hour, we spoke about Little Brown Dog, who had an independent. I don't know if you've heard of them, Paul. An independent bottler, gin company, but they're releasing some single cask whiskies. In the beginning of the month, maybe the end of March, they released McMera, Swedish single cask, and it was like tropical fruit juice, umbongo, or this kind of really, really fruity stuff. So we've actually managed to get a UK exclusive, not single cask, but cask vatting of McMera that we're going to be putting out through the shop. So
Nice.
very exciting to do that. So so it's a wee exclusive for everyone.
And Paul, this will come as no surprise to you that Mike is I say this every week, and the bromance goes on, and you've already, you've probably got first claim on love of Mike because you met him before I did. But he's such an innovative guy. He's such a go-ahead guy, and he knows how to network. He knows how to build relationships, so he gets the best out of what he's doing.
So sometimes it gets me into trouble.
It's not called trouble. It's called another story.
Yeah, very true. Well, Paul, it's we try and keep these to an hour. We don't want to keep guys on too long. Some folk are just back from work and need their supper. So I do appreciate you guys sticking with us. It's I feel we could go on till midnight having a chat, reminiscing about old times, but I would need a hell of a lot more whiskey.
We maybe need a Paul. We maybe need a Whisky Doc Part 2, perhaps. I think that's maybe something we'll have to do. Yeah, for sure.
Definitely keen to get something going with the aroma kit and let's get people involved on a kind of little bit more professional level, and let's talk whiskey, and let's talk science and geekery and all that kind of stuff. That sounds like a fantastic session.
It's a lot of fun. If you do it right, like geek is fun. I mean, there's no doubt about that. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thanks for giving up the time. I guess it's mid-afternoon for you, is it?
Well, I left work 2 hours early, and I told my staff that we had to cram patients together this morning because I had a very important meeting on the internet at 3:00 my time. And at the end of it, my assistant said, "Are you going home to drink?" I said, "Well, I'm going to have a drink." "Yes." Out she goes.
That's the benefit of being the boss, right? Yeah.
Yes, it is.
I had to work late tonight. I was in the shop still at 6:15, getting stuff ready. So I don't get that privileges. Annette was, she was keen to go. She was. So I don't know if you noticed Annette's comment there. She just started with us. She came on board in October to help run our events and business development. So she developed quickly and left me to do all the tidying up and everything. It's terrible. But I don't have assistants like you do.
And also, I'm busy trying to pack boxes and moving house. But there's no way I was going to miss meeting you tonight, Paul. Again, I can't wait to meet you in person. Really can't wait.
Russell, I can't wait to have a dram with you, buddy, in person.
Totally true and correct, Paul. Yeah. Right, guys. Thanks very much for sticking with us. We'll hope to hopefully see you all soon. And maybe next week in our Blether with we have a couple of potential guys lined up. We'll announce it as soon as we can as to who's coming along. Paul, a pleasure as always. Great to see you again. Russell, good luck for tomorrow night or tomorrow.
Thank you. Yeah.
Let us know how it goes, and if you get some internet set up, give us a shout, and we'll
hey, Paul, I've got spare rooms, by the way, Paul. When you're coming over, no.
I'll take
3 digs.
Hey guys, thanks very much.
Good night, you.
If not before.